Larry Goldberg, so glad to see you, sir, on a day when I don't think anybody was expecting it. But we've had quite an interesting economic day. So we're going to start with the economy
Yes,
because
sir.
the stock market was crushed, just crushed today.
It's the economist, stupid.
It's the economy, stupid. You say you didn't mean me, right? Okay. Anyway, so so we let me just
I
tell you
meant them politicians.
this. So let me just tell you what Grok had to say, because as you are well aware, we talked about it for a minute in the green room. The Atlanta Fed, their GDP model dropped the other day from a positive. I want to say it was a positive two,
Yeah,
something like that.
it,
Two,
it was very normal. It was like in
positive,
the high twos towards the threes.
and it went to a negative 1.5 on Friday. And
Highly
then
unlikely.
and then today it dropped to
Went to
negative
negative.
2.8. You said, I say, I've never seen anything like that ever.
Yeah. Well, a lot depends on these, whether any of the numbers being fed in are being fed in with calculations on the tariffs or implied tariffs.
I don't think so. So, according to Grok, these numbers are 100%, this is a 100% driven by the data that they have assigned it. So, they don't do any analysis at all. So, there's no tariff data yet. There's no,
No, but I'm wondering if some of that data could come from not actual revenue returns or payment terms or receipt terms, but actual analysis from one or other source.
yeah. Well, so on Friday, as you
Mm.
know, we had lots of data coming in last Friday from the PCE. We also had data earlier in the week, and all of the data was looking a little soft. It
Yeah,
was
it was
we had in
soft.
particular, we had a piece of data showing that personal consumption was down 2.2%. And if you took inflation and added that, you were down 0.5%. So that was a pretty big number and impacted the numbers on Friday. Let me just tell you what Grok said about today's drop. Real personal consumption, again, seeing not from the PCE, but from elsewhere, dropped from 1.320.
Wow.
And then real private fixed investment growth fell from 3.5% to 0.1%. Private fixed investment includes business spending on equipment, structures, etc. Additionally, the Atlanta Fed noted that a decline in its dynamic factor, similar to the Chicago Fed's National Activity Index, contributed to these reductions. This factor likely reflects broader economic weakness captured in the latest data releases, amplifying the downward pressure on the that sounded like the word salad you got from some ex-presidential candidate. Anyway, so you have all of these different reports that were coming in last week, and again today you had the two manufacturing reports. Both of them were flat. They were up a little, but they were down from last month. They were kind of flattish, and they suggested rising prices in one of them. So that probably also contributed here. So some guy that has a YouTube channel, I don't know what his name is, about 4 weeks ago started saying something about a possible recession. Do you know who? Do you know whose channel that is? That could have brought that up.
But but Randy, what we said all along in the last 6 to 8 months, 8 months actually, is that A, there's a recession coming, and B, there's a recession present in the bottom half, or the not the bottom half, in the private small industry, small business, and in the lower income brackets. They're not sharing in the wealth, and we even emphasized this last week. While while kind of retreating from our view of the recession as a whole. But this may be the recession that we've been forecasting all along. And it may be that we're just falling over the cliff that, we've been sort of on this flat, balance between the poor section of the population, the wealthy section of the population.
Well, some of the stats,
the bottom half versus the top half. I mean, I'm floundering a little here because I'm trying to figure out whether this makes sense or not. But it doesn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if we're going into a recession. It wouldn't shock me at all.
So part of the analysis by this guy, Randy Kirk, that was on this show 4 weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago, and said that he thought there might be a recession coming, had to do with government spending. So last year, part of what was propping up the economy was government spending.
Right.
Part of what was propping up the economy was government hiring. And so you had all these people that were being hired and all this spending that was being done on infrastructure and this and that and the other.
Yeah, we talked about it at length. Yep.
And so now that's all stopped. So there's no government hiring at all. In fact, there's government letting go. And
not only the government hiring, but it's the government expenditures.
Right.
Because the government doesn't only spend by hiring people. It spends by cutting checks. The checks aren't being cut right now.
Right. And they're not only not being cut, they're being eliminated. There's contracts that are being stopped.
Yeah, it's very similar in a way to the recession that ran in the early part of the Clinton administration and the Reagan.
It was actually Bush 1 at the end of his term. Yeah. Yes, very similar, because that was partially caused by government cutbacks in military. Yes, very definitely. Now Clinton also had a big cutback in 375,000 employees were cut, but there was no recession that time. And that was the argument. That was the other side. That was the flip side of the argument for you and I. And I wasn't disagreeing with you. The flip side was, will the interest rates come down fast enough? Will the productivity come in fast enough to avoid the recession? And that could happen this time. We're not, it takes 2 quarters to make a recession. And I don't know if you looked at the interest rates today, Larry, but they're under 4.2 now.
Yeah, and I think at the current rate at which they're dropping, they could be under 4 by the end of next week.
Yep.
Quite easily.
Agree with you.
Because if this number is real, if this negative number is real, then interest rates are going to drop precipitously. Mm-hmm. And the Federal Reserve is going to reverse itself like it's instant, because and Trump will be on them like a ton of bricks. But look, we can't sustain the current disconnect between the two halves of the economy.
No.
And we can't have a government that's consuming 30% of the. I mean, these are situations that have to end. And the other thing is, you can't have 10 companies maintaining the indexes on the stock exchange. So, when these distortions become this apparent and this real, then time for a reset.
So I was looking, Larry, today, one of the representatives, some guy named Swalwell. I like him so much. He's such a brilliant guy. And he says, I thought Trump said he was going to get prices down on day one. And he says, what happened to that promise? So I went out and I did look at a few charts here and there. Oil is down significantly during the Trump administration. We are down now under $70 a barrel. We were up around 80 and change a barrel when Trump took over. Gasoline is now on the exchange is under $2. Nationwide, it's down almost 50 cents. It's almost down to the low point it was over the last 2 years. We also have interest rates we just mentioned, well, of course, that's already impacting mortgages. And so we were way over 7% when Trump took over. Now we're at about 6.5, and it'll be lower tomorrow. So all of those would be absolute.
But eggs went up.
Eggs went
Everybody's
up.
on eggs went up.
But all three of those are major,
Yes.
critical elements that have
Yes.
gone down since day one. So he's already made his promise true.
Well, you were right. I mean, I feel I feel a little disappointed that I was a year late or a year early in my
Early,
estimates.
early, yes. Yeah, yeah. I do that a lot, Larry. I'm always, well, it's like Elon says about his projects. He always gets them done. It's just they're late. I always make these estimates, and then I'm months and months or years late. Um,
So he turns the impossible into late, and I turn the probable into late.
right. So, all right. So now we have a stock market that's reacting to all of that.
Yeah.
We have a populace. Again, this is something I don't want to take too many victory laps tonight, but chaos, uncertainty, and what's the third one? Anyway, chaos and uncertainty,
Fear,
fear.
yeah,
Yeah. So we got the
fear
VIX at
uncertainty.
23, 22 point something, almost 23. So there's chaos, there's uncertainty, there's fear. That means risk off. We were seeing risk off, and it looked to me that like this morning, like maybe the risk off was going to change directions. But when those numbers came out from the Atlanta Fed and from the ISM today, the risk off, I think, is back in play.
Oh yeah, I mean it was very sudden and very and very I mean it was in incredible. I mean, I think Tesla went from 10 up to 10 down in like a matter of minutes.
Right. So one of the things, though, Larry, so now let's look at the good side. The good side is that we talked about this on Friday, I think, that consumers, average Joe, got 0.9% more income last month than the month before, while spending -2% of his check. So that had to either go to pay off debt or it had to go into investments or in savings. So
Savings.
that's a very good thing. And that it's already happening would also be really good in terms of a turnaround.
Yeah, sometimes these turnarounds take some time. You know, a lot turns on how many people get let go and how quickly. That's really the issue, and whether or not we lose productivity, you know, in real terms, if productivity holds and not too many people get laid off and expenditure holds even at the lower level, then, you know, that could be okay. It's hard to see what the offsets are. Maybe investment. Maybe there's going to be a jump in investment. We saw, you know, Trump trumpet the investment in chips.
TSMC. Mhm.
Yeah, but you know, the thing was, this was really set some time ago. I mean, it depends on whether we see a reshoring of a lot of industry, whether see a lot of Mexican industry return to onshore, which is kind of happening already. Maybe some European manufacturers move more stuff here. Yeah, these things take time.
Right.
They're not overnight.
Right.
You know, very little of the stuff is overnight. So it's going to be an interesting couple of months or a tough couple of months.
I don't know.
I don't envy the people who get caught short here.
Yeah, no kidding. There was some wag, I don't remember who it was, which president or which presidential advisor or economist who said, you want to get your recession out of the way early in the term.
absolutely right.
Yes.
Absolutely right.
So,
Reagan did, Clinton did,
right.
and both of them had phenomenally successful presidencies. On the other hand, Nixon never did. It just dogged him his entire presidency, which was cut short, which was foreshortened.
Yeah. So you have, if you get your recession out of the way early, and if you do it in a way that the way that we're seeing it happen, this is just Randy's analysis. But if you are cutting government and you're cutting interest rates, you're getting all that stuff that you're getting oil prices down. And by the way, Saudi Arabia today announced that they're going to increase production starting
Right.
in April. So that's already impacting oil prices. So we get the oil prices down into the 60s. We get the interest rates down into the threes. We get the mortgage rates down into the fives. You get
I don't know about the interest rates down to 3. That would be,
into the
well,
threes.
it's possible. It's
Into the threes.
probable. Yeah,
Into
it's
the
possible.
threes.
Yeah.
Into the threes. Yeah. And then mortgages be into the fives, maybe 5.8, 5.75, something like that. You could see a pretty fast flip on.
And he's always the optimist.
Wait a minute, now you're at 6.6 now, Larry, on mortgages. You're already at 6.6. So coming down another 60 basis points, it's not that much.
It's possible.
Yeah, that wasn't even my optimistic number.
It's possible. I mean, it's really, the it's really hard to tell the trajectory of these changes.
Yeah.
Very hard to tell.
Yeah.
Because we're not fully cognizant of everything. What is the inventory situation in industry? I mean, this is going to hit car sales like a bomb. I mean, car sales are just going to crater.
So car sales that have come out already showing negative. Ford and General Motors both out today, negative for the first for February.
Yeah, but that's not, I mean, that doesn't reflect what's coming.
Yeah,
That just reflects what's past,
definitely.
which is really still, enjoying the fruits of previous months. But when you see these kinds of, these kinds of impacts come, much heavier towards the middle of the recession, if it's going to be a recession. I mean, we're talking as if this is a done deal, but it's not necessarily a
No,
done
the
deal.
thing that is to me is the most the thing that I'm paying the most attention to right now is in fact consumer confidence.
Yeah.
So to the extent that the consumer says, I'm putting my hands in my pocket, I'm getting a good check. It's better than I was expecting. But I'm gonna save it. I'm not gonna borrow, and I'm gonna save it. Then that's where you could have your problem. But that's also where I think you get that bounce that could be really, really significant when the person goes, okay, I got enough savings now. My credit score is really good. I can go out and buy that car now.
But what do you think this 360 or 180 on Ukraine is going to do in terms of confidence?
Yeah, I think that's just part of the chaos and part of the confusion, Larry. I still believe the Ukraine is going to be solved. I don't see any way that
The problem is not whether Ukraine will be solved.
Mhm.
The problem is whether this will salve the Russian yen for expansion.
Oh,
Because, I mean, the Russian Empire is busy recreating itself, and I'm not sure it's going to be satisfied with a little bit of Ukraine. I think it's going to want a lot more of Ukraine, and the Baltic states they're in the firing line.
well,
So
what do you think Trump's trying to do? My feeling over the weekend was that Trump wants Europe truly to be able to build up their resources to be able to take on Russia.
I wish that was real. I mean, that is what Trump wants.
Right.
The question is, can Europe do that? Because firstly, they are rent themselves. I mean, Hungary's already saying, no, we're not going to support Ukraine. Romania has, they have,
Get their own
I
problem.
mean, they've got problems, but they're not really that serious. The real issue is Germany. And Germany's going to be in this sort of uncertain situation where they're entirely, blocked from making decisions during this period of the government being formed. And the government that's being formed is, it's unclear to me whether they have the backbone to do this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm looking at this reset. I'm hoping that the reset takes place. But at least, Larry, I think with regard to Ukraine, if there is a peace deal, it will be a peace deal that lasts at least as long as Trump's in office. And I don't think Putin will be looking for opportunities to tweak Trump for the next 3 years and 10 months.
Here's what I think. I think that it was a great tragedy that Zelensky had to get his personality in the way of this deal. I think this deal was an extremely well thought through way to kind of solve the problem of getting America committed, financially, winning, or at least apparently financially winning, and using that financial win to provide Europe with the means to support. And that seemed to be what was being engineered. And I think, Trump had these guys like David Sachs and company on the one hand pushing him to cut off Ukraine, and the vice president to cut off the Ukraine. And on the other hand, I think he felt quite strongly that he wanted Ukraine to prevail, at least to the extent that they held. But now it's been made personal. Zelensky made it personal with Trump. And I think this was a terrible mistake. I don't know if you went back and read Churchill's telegrams to Roosevelt,
I didn't.
but there you will see how a master plays the junior role in a situation where a power, and Roosevelt was faced with the same problem that Trump has. He had these, USA first, what do they call them? America firsters, very strong, very, very strong. And he had to negotiate that while trying to support Churchill financially as well as with arms. But anyway, I've said my piece. What's happened has happened, and now we have to figure out how to go forward. And you're right, it's up to Europe, and I honestly have my doubts about Europe's ability. And by the way, that only reinforces what Trump is saying in terms of, Europe have got to step up.
Yeah, no kidding. It does reinforce it. So then, amongst all of this stock market craziness today, NVIDIA was down another 9%. Now, Larry, I was kind of interested in buying some NVIDIA 6 months ago. I should have. I have never owned one share of NVIDIA, but with another 9% drop, I got to say, I am so tempted. So, what do you think about this?
You probably have to wait.
Crazy.
I mean, this is not financial advice, but I would wait to see how this thing shakes out, because there may be another leg down, or a leg or two down. Things could get very nasty if some financial institutions start toppling, or not even financial institutions. We don't know. Look, when you've had 20 years, 17 years of zero interest, and you've had, all this good stuff happening, a lot of rot has set in, and we don't know where that rot is. And so there are we're going to discover a lot of stuff in this coming environment, which we didn't know. So I will say that the market hasn't seen the bottom or anywhere close to the bottom. And that's true of all stocks. I'm not singling out NVIDIA. I've owned NVIDIA I own NVIDIA for a very long time, and I've just started buying NVIDIA just a little while ago, just just looking at it. But I would say that it's unclear to me. Now, look, the market could spurt up again, run up a couple 100 points overnight. It's been known to do that. But if things are as we say they are, then there may be some really nasty stuff to come out. And if it does, the market as a whole will go down. And then the opportunities will become very large indeed.
Right. So in addition to everything else going on in the world with, for some reason, the left, or some on the left, I shouldn't say the left, some on the left have chosen to either pay for, or maybe there's honest people out there on these picket lines, on these lines of people that are, giving demonstrations out in front of Musk properties. But there's some evidence that these are paid for. They are definitely organized. We know that there's an organization that takes credit for putting these all together. Then there's also people that are flipping off Tesla owners, messing up cars, putting on swastikas on cars and on and pumps at the charging stations. It seems odd that these people are going after Musk or Musk's companies when they would normally be all about a company that's making electric cars.
Well, there's this very deep hatred of Trump amongst a segment of the population.
Are you talking Musk or Trump?
Against Trump.
Okay.
And now that Elon has identified him so strongly with Trump, he's painted with the same brush. We have made politics a very serious game, in the sense that we no longer are prepared to discuss matters and agree to disagree. We have to literally destroy the other side, and the destruction is going to the nth degree. And so it's, any organization related to it, and then any business related, and particularly when a member of the government is one of the wealthiest or the wealthiest man in the world. And so he's become a real target of hatred. So there's nothing that can be done about it. It's just going to be that way.
Yeah. So I made the statement this morning on my show, Larry. I said, I think all of that is now baked into the Tesla stock. So the amount that it dropped today was, I think, more related to the overall, to the macro, not necessarily to anything about Tesla at all. And if you watch the pattern,
I'm absolutely certain that it's related to the macro, but I don't think we're past the worst of this.
In terms of the things that are going to be done to Tesla, you mean, or to the perception by the folks who buy stocks that they might still want to trim because of it? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't think it has anything to do with the stock. I think it has to do with the public, the activity of these activists, and how it reflects back on Tesla. And the question is, how will it affect the sales of Tesla, and then ultimately the stock? And will it affect the rideshare program, the FSD, and the cybercab? Those are the open issues that I think are the worrying factors. And, I'd like to think it won't, but time will tell.
You'll be happy to know, if you didn't see this report this morning, and I meant to post it up so I can read from it. So I'll have to do that tomorrow morning so I can tell everybody exactly where this article came from. But a polling company went out and asked the question, and they found out that among left-leaning people, Democrats or whatnot, among the left-leaning folks, there was a 11 or 12% less likelihood now that they would buy a Tesla. And among the right-leaning folks, there was an 11% increase in the number of people who were interested in buying a
Right.
vehicle. So this was my great hope. I've been hoping this for a year. I've been saying
Well,
it for a year, but it was mostly hopium. But at least we have at least one poll now that says that this is what's taking place.
yeah, I mean, it's natural that it would work that way. It's really it's very disheartening to see this kind of activity, but it is only to be expected.
Yeah, okay. Yes. So the good news is we hope it actually takes place. So Larry, what are you thinking now? Are you paying any attention to the actual, excuse me a second, I have to find my charger. I had I had cleaning help in here today and they moved my charger. Okay. So
They moved your
uh
cheese, huh?
say
Yeah.
what?
They moved your cheese.
They moved my cheese. Oh yeah. So, have you paid any attention to what you think is going to happen with the unit sales? I know that at this point we shouldn't care. It's all about the future. What happens this quarter? Who cares?
Well, the quarter sales are down in Europe because we're in this changeover from, Model Y to the new Model Y. Nobody's going to buy a Model Y until the new Model Y is available. And so obviously the Model Y sales took a dive. That's absolutely normal. And now they're crowing, oh, well, the political thing in Europe, blah, blah, blah. We'll see. We'll
Relax.
see. Next month, it'll reverse, I believe. So I think that will be the test. Um, I I honestly think that the roadmap this year is so exciting, and the products that are coming are so good that I think we'll be fine. We may have a bad first quarter. We will have a bad first quarter, but I think the second quarter is going to be very good, and then the third quarter could be a blowaway quarter. That's my hope. We'll see.
So a number of guys, Dan Ives and others, were out this morning cheering on, saying the same thing, holding on to their expectations. Elon over the weekend said that he sees profits going up 10x over the next 5 years. So that was seemingly, all of that was seeming to cheer the market this morning before we had this blowout.
Yeah, I mean, I'm as little worried about the share price now as I was last week and the week before and the week before. These are buying opportunities, these are buying opportunities. I did add at higher prices. Now I'll be able to add a little bit at lower prices.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, anything else on your mind before we look at the numbers, Larry? Starship. We got Starship.
I've got one eye on the Starship. They're about to start fueling it. I'm very, very excited. I wish I were there.
Yesterday morning, Brian Wong and I did a video about Starship and Starlink, and Brian got into the nitty gritty. I mean, a lot of the, what's going to happen on number 8, what's going to happen on number 9, what's going to happen the rest of the year, how are we going to get to the place where we can launch 5 to Mars by the end of next year, and then what's happening with Starlink, what can these new satellites be capable of once Starship is actually the one releasing the brand new
Right.
satellites. And great detail, great information, solid. Nobody watched it, Larry. Nobody watched it, Larry. I'm going to put the card up again at the end of the show. But it was a great show. It was for anybody that cares
Well, I
about
would strongly recommend people go and listen to Brian Wang on that subject because what is being done with Starship is really quite remarkable. I mean, it is really quite remarkable, and the vision is just extraordinary. I've been looking at the numbers about the number of rockets being launched and the weight of satellites being put into Earth orbit, and who's doing the launching and so on. And SpaceX is just getting more and more and more dominant. And I'm not talking about in the United States, I'm talking globally. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah, and that's only in terms of Earth orbit. Then we've got moon projects. We've got Brian goes into some detail also on the idea of once we pull down the space station. So the space station is getting old, and Tesla's been given the contract to bring it back to Earth. I mean, to burn it up in the atmosphere,
Yeah,
piece by
absolutely.
piece. But they could put up they could put one Starship in orbit and have the same usable space as the entire space station, and equip it, scientifically, and then bring it back. They wouldn't have to leave it up there. They could just take it up and back and down. So anyway, lots of stuff like that on that
Think
show.
about connecting a whole bunch of starships together. Think about you can create a city up there.
You could, and that's isn't that Bezos's uh, idea?
Bezos is talking about manufacturing in space. Yeah, that's what he's talking about, but he may need Starship to do that.
He might indeed. So it turns out, Larry, the stock market was down today. Oh, look at that. The Dow ended up at a point and a half down, 1.5%. I'm sorry, down. NASDAQ down 2.6, S&P down 1.76, and Tesla down 2.84. So truly, Tesla outperformed the rest of the market.
It's better. Yeah.
It outperformed its beta. You got the Mag 7 pretty much all in the same boat with NVIDIA, the star, down 8.69, crazy. And then Tesla in the after hours, so far down another 0.71. And just for fun, NVIDIA, since it is the star, down another 0.21 in the after hours. So everything was down, but the important part to me, Larry, is those bonds, as you know,
Yeah.
down a total of 7 basis points today alone, 4.159. So you could be down to 4.0 in 2 days, literally, with a couple of strong down days. You got oil prices down another $1.29, 68.47. We could be in the
Amazing as the interest rate, short-term interest rate comes down, long-term interest rates come down, stocks come down.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that work?
I don't know. But at some point, so that if we assume that the market is always trying to figure out what's going to happen 6 months from now,
Yeah.
but they just got blindsided. Okay, the market has not been planning for a recession right now. So that doesn't happen often, but it does happen. We've been through this before. I
Yeah.
think the dot-com bust was an example where the market did not see it coming.
Well, in a way, the market decline caused the recession. That was a recession almost directly
Related to the market coming down. Yeah.
because the stocks had climbed so high and so out of all proportion. And it could be that the Magnificent Seven got so far ahead of the market, so much money went into it, that their decline could be a stock market bust type story.
Yeah, that'll be another story that we have to watch. Gold found its legs, Larry. It's back over 2,900 again, up 55
I've
from
been
the.
telling you 3,000 for gold, and
I know.
I don't think I'm wrong.
We've been agreeing. 2.44% up on silver today, and copper up almost a full percent. And Bitcoin. Now, this has been fun. I'm glad. Maybe I shouldn't be in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin went up from about 84, 83 up to 97 or something, based on Trump signing the executive order that they were going to
Yeah.
start the reserve thing. And today it dropped 7,739 points, 8.22% back to 86.5. So, so enjoy the ride, folks. They, they,
I mean, if there's a recession, Bitcoin could drop all the way down to 40,000.
it could. It could. Now, a lot of people have said 75 they thought was kind of its bottom, But yeah, it could go below that. Sure. Sure. Absolutely. Well, Larry, I just want to know if you are enjoying the live soap opera that we're living through right now.
Not really.
No,
I
you're
would I would prefer it not to be this way.
okay. Well, I'd like to not have war anywhere, but I have to admit that I'm kind of enjoying the chaos.
I'm not. I'm
Okay.
not. I'm too aware of things of the kinds of things that can go wrong, and they can be pretty serious.
They can be, but Larry, I've used this analogy a few times on the show because it's a very near and dear to my heart. If they hadn't cut me open, I wouldn't be here, Larry. So sometimes you got to cut the economy. You got to do some surgery, or your economy's eventually going to really be in trouble. So I think I'd rather have, as I said a little while ago, I'd almost rather have the surgery right now, get it out of the way, and let's get going.
Yeah. And I don't think that this was necessary. I don't think we needed to have a recession. I think all of this could have been avoided. I think they were too loose too early, and then they were too tight too long.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
view. And
and
I think this all stems from the crazy expenditure that was done through this pandemic. This pandemic, I mean, oh my word. Anyway, it is what it is.
it
Let's
is.
go and watch a rocket
We're
being
going to watch
launched.
the rocket take off, and this time everything's going to go perfectly. The heat shields are going to make it back in. They're going to be just fantastic, and they're going to land that booster just precisely and beautifully.
Just remember that a hell of a lot more can go wrong a hell of a lot more is likely to go wrong than to go right.
Right. And that we learn from the things that go wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the stage we're in right now.
So to speak, the stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Larry. Enjoy the show watching
Thank you.
tonight. It's been great talking to you guys.
And we'll see you, I guess, on Friday.
Friday. What do you call it? Job
Yeah.
Friday.
Jobs Friday, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Employment Friday.
See you then.
Take care.